Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to another Monday entry as I try to get more of these out each week. And I'm also returning to, the whole 80s kind of like non-horror Monday, with just different entries that may not strictly be horror, but as usual, they could just be something that's either forgotten or just something that I haven't, seen in a while, wanted to revisit and see if it holds up. And for this week, I revisited the 1981 animated film Heavymetal. This is an anthology film which includes creators of similar, comics within the Heavy Metal magazine, which I actually have an issue of here. This is from, I want to say, 2016, I believe. And every now and then I would scoop up one, and I know I have more of these, around here somewhere stored away, but, flipping through, it definitely gives an idea of kind of what to expect with the film, like how they have the different styles of the different comics in there and illustrations. And not only was this one kind of like the start of the film's inception from this magazine, but it was also music of the time, a lot from the late 70s through very early 80s. A lot of that kind of rock, worked into the soundtrack. But as for what this film is about, the synopsis is as follows. A glowing green orb that embodies ultimate evil terrorizes a young girl with an anthology of bizarre and fantastic stories. Now, there's not that much to go on with that as far as what to expect, but for those new to this film, here's some quick info before I dive into any specifics a little bit later on. Basically, there are several shorts in this anthology, including, the epilogue, and they are all like sci-fi fantasy based, or sci-fi fantasy inspired. Throughout, we have very heavy violence and a lot of nudity and sex is thrown in as well. But all these stories share a connection to this green orb, the Lochnar, mentioned in the synopsis. So some of the stories involve a little girl's dad coming home from outer space and her being kind of filled in on what this orb is through the stories that it's recounting to her. We also have, the orb kind of being sought after in a big city, in New York City of the future, seeing characters trying to get their hands on this highly sought after artifact. And we also have a World War II inspired one involving like some bomber planes, a story about like a weak little nerd kind of being teleported to another planet and kind of being transformed along the way into like this really strong hero type. We also have a simple one with just like an alien abduction, some sentient robots, a strong warrior woman out for revenge. You get the idea. There's a whole mix of things, but there's always that link to either sci-fi or fantasy within it. And at times, gritty sci-fi fantasy animated film, which is absolutely not meant for kids, though many, including myself, at the time had stumbled across this one, late night on cable TV. I feel part of the reason why this film got so popular was because of that violence, the language, and nudity, and the sexuality, because back then when this film came out, it was extremely rare to even have a film like this, much less to have, easy access to it. Animation was seen pretty much as just cartoons for kids for the most part, something that was kind of echoed throughout the years afterward before anime really exploded into America in the early 2000s. Anything animated was always seen as something kids related, when really it's just another option for a way to tell a story. Another point to note in this film, kind of showing who the audience is meant to be, is the soundtrack, which is a really great one. It features a mix of songs by Journey, Stevie Nicks, Cheap Trick, Nazareth, Don Felder, Grand Funk Railroad, and Blue Oyster Cult, just to name a few of them. The music really does drive this film, almost in like a music video kind of way. Always there in the background, kind of swelling up where needed for certain scenes and sequences, and keeping us in that rock music video vibe the entire time. I think this one can generally be enjoyed by a new audience today, but keep in mind, if you do check this out for the first time, the time that it came out, the various animation styles you're going to be seeing, and the fact that many may talk this one up quite a bit due to their nostalgia, having come across it when they were younger. So your results may vary with that, but it's currently over on Tubi and paid rental if you're interested. Okay, so for a little bit more details, which there may be some spoilers, so I'll put up this little notice here just in case. Most of this is just about my thoughts about my discovery of this film and what I've thought about it over the years and revisiting it. Just some quick info, because for me, sometime late at night, I came across this one on cable. I think it was from right at the beginning of the film, because I do remember that opening sequence of the car kind of coming in for a landing. And pretty quickly, I knew that I was in for something very different, something unlike any kind of animated film I'd ever seen before. As I see her father melted down and we're launched into this next story in this future New York City, further violence, and of course lots of actual nudity and sex, stuff that I'd never seen in anything animated before. Needless to say, being probably 10 years old at the time that I came across this one, I was fixated on it, but not just for the nudity, but the story in general, and the fact that I'd never had basically a cartoon presented to me in this way. They were always kid-related ones, at least the ones that I had access to. So there I was watching an R-rated sci-fi fantasy film meant for adults, but in animated form, It really stuck with me, and I had a taped cable version, the Laserdisc, the DVD, and eventually the Blu-ray as well. Now this last time that I watched it just a few days ago, it was the first time I'd seen it easily, I would say, in about 10 years, maybe more. So there were some bits that I'd forgotten or aspects I didn't remember as being part of this sequence or that, or how some of them were even connected in this anthology. But this time around, I also really noticed the influence that it had brought later down the line, looking at how this New York scene really influenced later down the line Fifth Element, which I believe was about 15 years later as well. With our first big chunk of those stories in that New York scene. And the difference in animation style, just how stark and different they are, it really stuck out to me a lot this time through, with ones using practically cutout kind of images for their animation to fully animated, hand-drawn, some looking more realistic with their shading, while others are 100% fantastical and really strange. Also, after years of watching other animation styles, I noticed that much of this still is a bit dated, particularly in the way that the movements are and everything. So someone new may not take to it as much as they might be used to anime, or highly computer-assisted animation, at least, with a lot of shading and coloring being done. Often what we've seen over these past 20 years or so. But on this revisit, I also decided to kind of rank the segments in a way. But like I did with my Stranger Things video, which I will link to at the end, this doesn't mean that whatever's at the bottom is not good. It's just the one that I like the least out of the bunch. So to rank them in order of what I most liked to least, I think it'll be no surprise that the most common one that people talk about when referencing this film is also my favorite segment, which is Tarna, the one about that warrior woman who's tough, silent, prepping up, riding out on this weird bird dragon mount, chopping off heads, getting in bar fights. Definitely the standout one of the most exciting and action-packed one, which is probably why they saved it for toward the end of this story and had it kind of wrap into things a little bit differently than the others. Following that, I would say, I believe it's called Den, the one with the little geek who is transported to the other world, becoming this mighty warrior. Really fun 13-year-old boy fantasy there, and the humor that John Candy really, speaks into this role works really well. After that, I would say Harry Canyon, the one that kind of inspired Fifth Element later down the line, the one that's in New York. You can see so much of that inspiration in it. It's really an interesting and probably, I would say, the most gritty looking one out of all of them. Following that, I would put Captain Stern. It's a fun little twist of one, with the little guy taking the fall for someone who, as we hear the accusations coming against him, as well as what this little patsy kind of yells out, is pretty awful. Kind of an interesting little take. After that, probably the slowest one, but also the creepiest one, the B-17. Like I said, it's very quiet, it's very creepy, feels more like a horror film than fantasy or sci-fi, with this zombie aspect to it, and I really love the design. And after that, coming in toward the end, is So Beautiful, So Dangerous, the one where we have this abduction from the Pentagon, a woman having sex with that robot and so on. I mean, it was alright, just it felt like a little bit of filler. And then of course our beginning setup and our epilogue are slid into bookend this, so I kind of look at them separately. But it's definitely a good one that we have here, and as I've mentioned before and in other videos I've done about anthologies, I really do love them. These little small stories, sometimes more shuffled and not as much of a connection between the two, but the good ones like these have a through line that sticks. and is always kind of refreshed at the beginning and the end of each segment, such as in this case with the Lochnar. We always have this green orb showing up, constantly finding its way into each story, so we really get reminded the entire time through what this is, and it's the Lochnar telling a tale about its influence throughout both time and space. Now, while some of this is definitely dated, and when it comes to recommendations, there's a lot of nostalgia around this one, I still feel that this one, the way that it's laid out, including all the adult themes, which never feel too shoehorned in, gives it quite the sci-fi fantasy tale to kind of go through in a slim 90 minutes. It's a lot of fun, and it's still, in this day and age, more than worth checking out. And speaking of checking out, thanks for checking out this latest quick video here, this little 80s throwback video for Heavy Metal from 1981. Thanks for sticking around to the end. What are your thoughts on this one, though? Did you see this at a much younger age, or not come about seeing it until you were much older? What were your thoughts? Go ahead and sound off in the comments. And as always, if you enjoyed, please give me a thumbs up. And if not already a subscriber, consider subscribing, checking out my back catalog, and I will see you in the next one.